This podcast is presented to you in Relaxovision.
Hello, and welcome to Nostalgia Marcana. I'm your host, Doug Leaf. Each episode of this podcast, we'll look back on the movies, TV, games, people, and phenomena that we still love talking about all these years later, and ask ourselves why these bits of pop culture still enchant us today. This week, we'll be revisiting...
Super team extraordinaire, Freakazoid, Freakazoid, runs around in underwear, Freakazoid, Freakazoid, guess who's Washington DC, Freakazoid, Freakazoid, there's something better's on TV, Freakazoid, Freakazoid, his brain's overloaded, it has a chocolate coating, textbook case for Sigmund Freud, Freakazoid, Freakazoid.
Check out Dexter Douglas, your computer ace, when surfing on the internet, there was Ash's cyberspace, he turned into the Freakazoid, who's strong and super quick. He drives the villains crazy, cause he's a lunatic.
His home base is the Freakaland, Freakazoid, Freakazoid, Floyd the barber cuts his hair, Freakazoid, chimpanzee, rides around in a Freakomobile, Freakazoid, Freakazoo, hopes to make a movie deal, Freaka-me, Freaka-you, he's here to save the nation, so stay tuned to this station, if not we'll be unemployed, Freakazoid, Freakazoid, Freakazoid.
Today, we're talking about Freakazoid, one of the weirdest cartoons to ever exist. I am very, very excited to be talking about this very weird cartoon because it goes to places cartoons just normally don't go. In fact, to me, it's one of the more influential cartoons because if you look at some of the weirder things to come down the pike in terms of animation, think things like Adventure Time and stuff like that, they probably wouldn't exist without an assist from Freakazoid, even though only 24 episodes of this were ever made. So I'm very glad that we're getting into it. It's a personal favorite of mine. And to help me do it, we've got a very special guest to talk about the strange world of Freakazoid. Ladies and gentlemen, it is Weena Mercator, the hopping woman. No, sorry, we don't have Wiener Mercator. I'm sorry, we don't. But we do have a guest who is a textbook case for Sigmund Freud. Please welcome filmmaker and comedian Tarik Davis.
Hey, what up, buddy?
Man, I am super excited about this. You know, one of the things I've realized getting to know you over the course of doing podcasts with you is like, even though we are from opposite sides of the country and we have totally different backgrounds, like I think we like the Venn diagram of the media that we both love is like there's a huge overlap. And so this came about on we were talking about Fright Night for Halloween. And Roddy McDowell came up, who is on Freakazoid, and like we had a little moment of like, we both love this thing. And so this episode was born. So tell me about, your nostalgic memories of Freakazoid and why we're talking about this today.
Yeah, I'm so happy to be talking about this obscure, like Freakazoid. Yes, we share a Venn diagram, and in that Venn diagram, Freakazoid, for me, is an extreme happy place. So I was in high school, like when the show was airing, and this is the late '90s, and peculiar. People may think that this is peculiar for. I think I was like I was about to graduate, high school junior, senior year. Freakazoid's on. I'm still watching Saturday morning cartoons, and it was on WB, Kids WB, and. I didn't really talk about, I definitely didn't share the fact that I was still watching Saturday morning cartoons, like 17 years old. I know I'm not the only one now. I think a whole bunch of other kids were. They just, trying to be too cool for school, literally. But Freakazoid was one of those things I didn't talk about. I just made sure I caught every episode. And there was something about, and so I am blossoming, you know, you guys know me enough that when Doug asks me a question, I turn it into a whole ass long, kind of ponderous, nostalgic soliloquy. But this is when I'm blossoming into and on the verge of adulthood. And part of that is like discovering what my tastes are. So the things that like at the time define my tastes, um, comedically and like were happy places for me. I love Seinfeld and I love Freakazoid and I loved the video store. And Freakazoid was like about this kid. Internet is just popping. We'll get into the song and um he was like a case study of Milestone Comics was the other thing I was going to throw in. The character Static, then Static Shock, the cartoon came out, hugely influential for me. So this is all happening around the same time, and
Hello. Tarik experienced an audio glitch, so please relax with Relaxovision. And now we return to our regularly scheduled podcast.
what I loved about Freakazoid was like this was a kid, his superpower wasn't, uh electromagnetism or telekinesis. It was film references. Old film references. His sidekick was Ed Asner. And like at the time, I was probably one of the only kids who can name drop who Ed Asner even was, much less like, so I'm freaking out recognizing like, wait a minute, that's Ed Asner. Wait a minute, that's Ricardo Montalban. Wait a minute, that's Roddy McDowell's voice. Right? Like, and know what the show was parodying because I had spent all those years up until becoming a young teenager absorbing all of this media from the video store, from TBS late night movie nights, and from Johnny Quest playing, Sunday afternoons. Like I had caught all this stuff that the writers of the show were sharing because they were adults and they were just a generation ahead of me, but I got their references. Does that make sense? That was like a long meandering.
No, totally, because as you said, one of the strengths of this show is it spends a lot of time referencing, older generation performers, cartoons, movies, things that, these creators found funny just because they grew up on it, they knew it. And what kind of is amazing about Freakazoid is it's such an absurdist, Dadaist kind of show that it works whether you get the reference or not. Your brain, even if you don't know what these things are, your brain will notice they're referencing something. Even if I don't know what it is, it's too specific to not be a reference to something. And the strangeness of the choice to reference the thing is still funny in and of itself. And that's kind of where I came in. I was not as knowledgeable about this older media at the time this hit as you. I knew some of it, but not all of it.
Right.
And I was, this came out in 95, so I would have been 15, ran 95 to 97. And this was at the height of my Monty Python fandom. And so like, anything that was super random and weird, I was all about it. And so this, gave me that in spades. And like, there are even, we'll talk about the individual segments. There is one segment recurring on the show that is very explicitly Monty Python.
Yes.
But there's so much weird stuff happening all the time. And what I loved about it was that it really broke just about every convention of cartoon making or storytelling. Like it has way more in common with the weirdest episodes of like old Looney Tunes cartoons, which would also be full of impressions of contemporary people that I did not recognize, but to an audience watching Daffy Duck in 1948, oh, they know who Mel Blanc is impersonating, but I don't. In that way, where old cartoons can serve as a bridge to this past pop culture, like just look at The Simpsons. Like half of the voices on The Simpsons are basically, Hank Azaria and Harry Shearer doing impressions of other characters
Right.
or figures, and just figuring, if you just disguise that slightly, it's a brand new character to the audience.
Right. Like, the idea of Troy McClure is basically from The Simpsons is a good spring bed for Freakazoid, right? Like kids today wouldn't understand like the reference of, "Hi, I'm Troy McClure. You may have seen me in such films as Banshees on the Moon," right? Like
Gladys, the groovy mule.
right, like it was who and he was a combination of two actors from the era of the 50s and 60s going into the 70s and 80s and like going and like this commentary of actors who were studio actors, square jawed kind of um before Bruce Campbell's right, right, like the proto Bruce Campbell type actor who because of the studio system they would be slotted anywhere, so they did all these strange movies as the studio system was dying in the late 60s. And then by the 70s, when you get the studio system has collapsed and you get the explosion of blaxploitation and independent cinema, both of them independent cinema, these actors, like, the fictional Troy McClure, end up doing what a lot of people consider schlock, right? And doing these like weird movies, weird sci-fi movies, and lucky if they add Harryhausen special effects. And that doesn't exist anymore. That archetype of actor who's just like a journeyman of schlock, which I'm not a fan of that term. But Freakazoid embraces that kind of world, those references. They idolize it and they package it in a superhero show. And I say superhero with quotation marks. You think like, all right, and the character design of Freakazoid's brilliant. You got this blue-skinned guy in a red jumpsuit, very iconic, and he's got the Bride of Frankenstein's kind of hair. And all right, and I imagine kids watching like, okay, yeah, it looks it's Bruce Timm design, Batman the animated series have come back. People are watching that. All right, this show, I'll watch it. WB and Steven Spielberg's name is on it. Ooh. And then it's just so absurd. It's a show of vignettes, similar like Animaniacs and
Tiny
what
Toons
was
before it.
Tiny Toons before it. And commercials, parody commercials, sketches, and a main character superhero who doesn't really do the superhero thing. It's Deadpool before Deadpool. He breaks the fourth wall, speaks to the camera. And like you said, Adventure Time, I would say Deadpool. A lot of that stuff doesn't exist without Freakazoid.
Yeah, and I don't remember when Deadpool came into existence in the comics, but I think that's a great like reference point. Like what I love about this is this wouldn't have been made but for the success of Tiny Toons and Animaniacs. But like it's as if they took Tiny Toons and they distilled out the 10% of the craziest shit from Tiny Toons and said, we'll turn this into Animaniacs. And then they said, let's distill the 10% of the craziest shit from Animaniacs and make Freakazoid. Because this is far less coherent than those shows are by design. Like it's, in fact, there are episodes that do have a more cohesive plot and they feel out of place. They feel like, so there's a two-parter. We'll get into the story of Freakazoid and who he is in a bit, but there's a two-parter where they tell like his origin story.
Yes,
And
I remember that.
it feels almost like the studio saying like, you have to tell the superhero origin story. Like, all right, we'll write something that does this. It's, more, like I said, structured than an average Freakazoid episode. And it's like episodes 8 and 9 or something instead of 1 and 2.
Yeah.
So it's in there, but I know this began life, they wanted a more straightforward superhero thing. Cause again, Batman was popular. You had the Superman cartoon, I think, by then as well. Like, superhero, I can't remember if X-Men was X-Men's 97, right?
X-Men, yeah. So X-Men was
a little later.
And animated Spider-Man, right? Like, so it was a crowded field. They were on Fox. And Batman, the animated series, had jumped from Fox to WB. And you had like this field of animated superhero shows that were quite popular. I also, just before I forget, I just checked. Deadpool's first overt fourth wall break happened in Deadpool number 28 in 1998.
Okay, so Freakazoid did get there first.
Right. It really feels like someone watching an episode of Freakazoid and a character in a similar red outfit now is breaking the fourth wall and acting like a Bugs Bunny character.
Yeah, and I mean, fourth wall breaks, like, there is no fourth wall left in Freakazoid. Like, it's,
Nope.
And what we mean by fourth wall break, of course, for people who aren't, as into like media literacy or whatever, but like, it's when a character literally turns towards the audience and does something that fractures the reality of the show or acknowledges the fact that they're in a fictional world. Shows that do this, they'll do it regularly enough, because if you never do it and then you do it once, like you can't have like a show that's like, I don't know, The Pit, set in an ER where all of a sudden Noah Wiley turns to camera and goes, "Ain't I a stinker?" You can't do that. It has to be part of the show's like visual language. Like the Muppets, for example, do this. But the Muppets, for as often as they break the fourth wall, this is breaking the fourth wall like every 20 seconds.
Yes. And breaking the fourth wall, telling jokes from a 40, 50-year-old's perspective. Right? Like, I watched the behind the scenes. I had the box set, and I remember watching the behind the scenes, and you can hear some of the writers talking about like, we don't know how this even got on air. And you can hear them, and like they're laughing, but you could hear them laughing through like through winks, but also through gritting some pain of like, you talked about that two-parter, and they openly talk about their issues with the larger producing entity that was WB at the time. Like, what is this show? Giving them notes, being so angered by the absurdity of it, and they're laughing, being like, yeah, we just tried to keep the joke going as long as possible. So yeah, you get this almost structureless show that's not just structureless, but it's telling jokes for a kid audience, but but it's 40-year-old, 50-year-old telling jokes, right? And it's just, for me at the time, you put it in my veins. I loved it.
Yeah, like I said, being in love with something like Monty Python, it wasn't just that the show lacked a structure, it's that it was satirizing the structure itself.
Yeah.
So many of these jokes are about like taking the way, not just superhero shows, although that was the primary target, right? Was superhero media. It was taking the entire way that like television and cartoons were delivered to you and just turning them on their heads to the point where barely anything made sense anymore. And so, yeah, I mean, we've done sort of the prelim. This episode is going to have a pretty loose structure as we go. But I think it all starts with the theme song, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which you all heard, I'm sure, at the beginning of this podcast. It's a catchy little banger of a theme song, but like even just looking at the lyrics to it, right? The repeating patterns in it start to come apart, where like, so first it's that repeating like Freakazoid, and then by the end it's like Freakazoid, Freakazoo, chimpanzee, is thrown in there,
Chimpanzee,
like just because it's a
chimpanzee,
3-syllable
chimpanzee.
word, like
Yeah,
there's
yeah,
it just gets weirder and weirder. And like, and again, like it starts off like describing this superhero and like his like superhero car and like the superhero things he does. But pretty soon it's like Floyd the barber cuts his hair,
yeah.
just stuff that's just weird.
Right. And I think they even throw in like there's like film footage from like
Of a chimpanzee. When
of a
when they sing the line
chimpanzee, right?
chimpanzee, they cut to like, yes, stock footage of an actual chimpanzee jumping around.
Yeah. And am I mistaken? Was there, or am I thinking of Animaniacs, where there's like every episode the theme song has like not improvised, but a different like a placeholder, almost like for a different lyric.
Not
Um,
this one. No, they do
not
change
this
it
one.
every once in a while, but in general, no. The theme song doesn't change, although they do have there's a stinger at the end of every episode after the
Right.
credits where Freakazoid says something funny that changes from bit to bit.
That's probably what I'm
Um,
thinking about.
yeah,
It's a great theme song. It's a great theme song. Check out Dexter Mathis, nerd computer ace. It's on the internet. He got zapped in cyberspace. He turned into the Freakazoid, who's strong and super quick. He drives the villains crazy. Why, he's a lunatic. All right, I remembered more than I thought, but it's got a really catchy groove, and yeah, Dexter Mathis, who makes maybe two
Douglas,
appearances in
Dexter Douglas.
Dexter Douglas.
I wouldn't
Dexter
forget.
Douglas makes like he's not really in the show that much.
No,
Um, like when Freakazoid changes, it's the Freakazoid show. It's not, he doesn't really revert back and forth and have the typical crisis of identity that superheroes usually have. Um, Freakazoid is mostly Freakazoid.
yeah, the show knows you're not here to see Dexter Douglas.
No.
His human identity. In fact, one of the episodes I watched recently, like it takes a while. They do this whole intro sequence to one of the villains, and they talk about him a long time. And Dexter's on a road trip with his family, and eventually runs into the villain, making him recognize, I better change into Freakazoid and do something. And the second Freakazoid is on screen, he cracks a joke about how long you had to wait for him to show up.
Yeah. It's a very self-aware show.
Yeah, I guess it's a good chance to talk about Dexter and like the to the extent this show has a canon. That is the canon. It's right there in the theme song. But they do this two-parter where Dexter is a teenage nerd, a computer nerd. He receives for Christmas a Pinnacle chip, which is some fancy CPU that has a flaw in it that if you type in this very long random sequence of characters and then hit delete, it will turn you into Freakazoid, because why not?
Oh, this is great! It's gonna make my computer twice as fast. It'll allow for true dedicated multitasking, and at 300 megahertz and 16 megs of RAM, I can
Dexter,
interface...
honey, you're boring us again, sweetie.
Oh, sorry. Can I go put it in?
Okay, hon, but only in your computer.
Internet, here we come. We're in.
A user would have to be connected to the internet. Then they'd have to press an exact sequence of keys followed by delete.
Got it. What's this junk?
Followed by delete.
We interrupt this program to increase dramatic tension. Thank you. And now back to our program.
Yeah.
And that's basically it. He is imbued with all of the knowledge of the internet.
Of 1996, 7, yeah.
Yeah, whatever's out there. and but really, as you said, his superpower is, he's lightning fast, and he can just do whatever he wants. He's basically a god in this universe because there's no rules.
Yeah, it's very similar to The Mask, Jim Carrey's The Mask, which came out like
94, I think,
prior.
or 5.
Yeah. So yeah, like this, you could like draw a line from like Looney Tunes to The Mask to Freakazoid. And yeah, it's funny that they also, the writers of the shows were fan of all media, and comic books encapsulates that. And so there's like an inside joke written into when Dexter Douglas change into Freakazoid, he says,
freak out.
Freak out. And to change back to Dexter, he says freak in, similar to like Johnny Storm's flame on, right? Like freak
or,
out.
Shazam,
like they're making fun of and turning the magic word trope of superherodom on its head.
Yeah, I mean, everything about him as a character. So we should really, it all comes down to the voice to me, more than anything else. So the voice is Paul Rugg, who was one of the creative forces behind this show and Animaniacs. And it was cool that they got him to be the voice. Mm-hmm. This was a voice he had done on Animaniacs, which is really just a riff on Jerry Lewis. It's mostly a Jerry Lewis impression, which he had done. Like, there's a very funny bit on Animaniacs where Wacko is he can't get rid of this clown that's bothering him, and the clown is Paul Rugg doing his Jerry Lewis shtick. And so
I remember that,
to build an entire show around a Jerry Lewis impression for a generation of kids who did not really know from Jerry Lewis, right? And especially when, like, because every once in a while, not only will Freakazoid break the fourth wall, sometimes he basically calls cut on the cartoon, and like whenever Freakazoid calls cut on the cartoon and reverts to his quote unquote real voice, it's also Jerry Lewis, but it's a different like mode of Jerry. It's like, look at these kids, aren't they beautiful? Like that. That bit.
I'd just like to pause here a minute and say what a gas and a sagacious experience it is working on today's show, because I walked onto the set today and everyone looked at me and said, we're going to have fun. Fun, fun, fun. And then Joey Leahy came, the announcer. Tell me he's not great. Tell me he's not great. Go ahead, tell me. You can't, right? You can't. And then you've got Eddie Asner, a bear of a man, a huggable guy. I kiss him. Mwah. And Kenny Mars. Funny? I think so. And these kids, have you ever in your life been filled with more joy being around kids, whether they're, religious, experiential or not? I love them, all of them. We'll hug after the show. Anyway, I needed to say that.
And action!
It's living in France, raising money for his charity voice, Jerry Lewis, right? Like, which is like, from a performer perspective, peak performance. It's just like mwah, chef kiss, to have the lady, and then look at these beautiful kids, aren't they adorable? Like that. Someone, to note that, it's like, to me, it's like when somebody has a really good Bruce Wayne and Batman. It's like, oh, great job.
Yeah, and I don't know how much he's allowed to improvise, or if he's just writing. He's also writing, a lot of the stuff for himself to say. But there's certainly, it feels, freewheeling and improvised, because it's just nothing but gags. But as a voice actor, I have to say, like, he's very good, because like he's often called upon to, like, yes, it's exaggerated, but like, scream and take his vocal cords to places beyond just the Jerry Lewis impression. And he is the show in a lot of ways, and he anchors it very well.
He really does. And how you anchor something that feels anchorless, I don't know how you do that, but it's incredible voice performer.
So the character has, to the extent, again, there's consistency. There's certain like recurring things. One is he has lightning fast super speed, right? He can zap himself basically anywhere in the world at the speed of light. But sometimes when it's time for him to get around, instead of doing that, he'll put his arms straight out and just go whoosh as he runs. You know, it's that kind of thing where they just have so much fun playing with the form.
Yeah, which is, it's exactly what a kid would do. Like you're a superhero and yeah, you can run super fast, or what's more fun? Saying, putting your arms out and going shh, like it's a very funny inside joke of this world.
Well, they also take a lot of the like inside baseball stuff that they would do in Animaniacs, because the Animaniacs literally live on a studio lot, which gave them license to do some inside baseball jokes. And here they keep doing that. So like Freakazoid has the Freakmobile, which again, he does not need a car. He can travel at the speed of light, but he has a car, and they throw it on screen, and he says it's toyetic. At which point they put the word toyetic on screen and have the announcer explain the definition of toyetic to you.
How toyetic can you get?
Toyetic is a word created by marketing people. It means an object or device featured in a cartoon that could easily become a mass-produced toy.
Right, and it's here to sell you merchandise.
Yeah, it's fascinating. And so here's like my inside. I'm also 1997 applying for college. And there was that year, we don't need to get into this about me, but I was thinking about being a cartoonist. An animator, or literally like applying for Joe Kubert's School of Art and trying to be a comic book artist. And I remember in this same bubble of time finding out what toyetic meant and how that tied. Remember I said Milestone was very foundational for me. Milestone Comics, and then we had Static Shock, which was the one character that came out of Milestone Comics, kind of this offshoot of DC, but Dwayne McDuffie and Christopher Priest and a bunch of other Black writers and artists and editors, they created their own world, and Static Shock was one of the superheroes that they created. Or Static, he's not called Static Shock, that's the name of the cartoon. Static Shock, the cartoon, comes out a little later, around the same time as Freakazoid, a little later, and one of the most popular shows consistently on the WB, but it gets canceled, and people find out, like, why did it get canceled? Because toy companies didn't invest in it, because they didn't think Black kids wanted a Black superhero. They didn't think there was a market there. They didn't think it was toyetic. So Freakazoid was also educational for me, because I was finding out, wait a minute, why is the show getting canceled? Aha, toyetic. And so you see the writers who share some of the same producers, Bruce Timm, right? Going back and forth. You see them putting their business gripes in their cartoon and disguising it somewhat with jokes. Anyway, I digress.
Oh yeah, I mean they literally had in that two-parter, they had Jack Valenti, who was at the time the president of the Motion Picture Association of America, come in and voice himself as the narrator of that particular episode.
Now might be a good time to tell you all about the Motion Picture Association of America's fascinating rating system. Now, if a family wants to see a movie and it's rated G, then everyone can go. Mom and Dad and Buffy and Jody and Grandma and Grandpa and even Sergeant Scruffy. If it's PG, then there might be something unsuitable for young or sensitive viewers, in which case Buffy will just have to stay home, along with Grandma, who didn't want to go to the movies anyway. Now, if the movie's rated PG-13, then...
Jack, we're ready for the next scene. You're gonna have to wait.
No, please, I beg you. Let me finish. This is very, very important.
Later.
But...
Later!
Oh, shoot.
And now, the next scene.
And, he even says something in, I'm doing this as a favor to Steven, Spielberg. So the inside baseball stuff on Showbiz is all over this cartoon. And in a way that's like, it feels like it's cathartic for them, right? We're just going to put that out there. We know that the 10-year-olds watching this won't be picking up all of this. But we're going to do it anyway because we think it's funny.
Yeah.
And yeah, they find all sorts of ways to do that. But that doesn't even begin to cover like the Showbiz satire. That's just one quadrant of this thing's weirdness. Like, to me, like, the success is some of these ways in which, like, they'll come up with a weird concept, they'll do it, and then it's like, how do we heighten it? Well, normal comedy zeros and ones tells you heighten something by increasing the intensity, right? Or in some way, or you undercut it in a particular, there's like a logic to how you heighten something. And here, the heightening is lateral, where it's like, instead of heightening this bit, we'll move on to something weird that's confusing and like different. And then we'll do that again and again. So what you're heightening is not the original joke, but the concept of just, we can give you like 4 completely different jokes in a row to where your head's spinning about where this thing is going.
Yes. All while trying to keep up with jokes that are also older than you. Like, these aren't just we're not just telling jokes and heightening or going laterally with these jokes. These jokes are old, right? Like, they're older than you. And you got to keep up. You got to keep up with the super fast Freakazoid.
Yeah, in the first episode, there's one of these runs of things that ends with Freakazoid. So how do I describe this? The whole episode, it starts with Freakazoid chasing one of his standard villains, the Lobe, who we'll talk about a bit later. Then they introduce this other villain, this guy in a trench coat, who has a magic watch that turns beavers into gold.
Yes.
But as Freakazoid bounds off to battle, certain questions remain unanswered. For instance, what part will this strange fellow play in our story? And what of the object he clutches so carefully? An ordinary watch, you say? Hardly. For it has a secret power. A bizarre power. The power to turn beavers into gold. Where did he come from? What did he want? And why was there a mint seed? Did it reveal character? How was the story advanced? We may never know. But now,
On with the adventures of Freakazoid! Pull the string!
And then we get so we are introduced this guy out of nowhere to do his thing. Then the announcer comes in to start saying, like, who is this person? Why is he in this episode? Where did he come from? And then we pan over to see the announcer, which is not an announcer, but it's a big wooden marionette just talking. Then we follow the strings up the marionette, and it's Freakazoid at the top of the building controlling it. And then he caps it off by going, "Pull the string," which is an Ed Wood reference.
Yes.
This whole sequence is madness, and that is typical of this show.
Yeah, it's you got to really dive deep into the $5 bin, that don't exist anymore, of your local video store, your local library, your local public access TV show. You got to dive in to keep up. Like, Ed Wood, if not for the Tim Burton movie, a lot of people would have just let Planet Nine go by. Luckily, because I was a fan of Tim Burton and Beetlejuice, and like, what is this aesthetic? I don't quite, it's familiar, but what? Oh, all right. And you see all these B movies, but lack of, I grew up in the 80s as a latchkey kid, so I didn't have the adult supervision constantly that a lot of kids today have. My parents were not helicopter parents. So I had to figure out a lot of stuff on my own. And Freakazoid at the end of my adolescence felt like a reward for it.
Yeah. It's a little bit of a final exam, I guess, on those kinds of things, right?
It really felt like a final exam. Like I felt like I was rewarded by teachers who like were constant substitute teachers. Like, yeah, we're not really paying attention. Just don't, you can talk, just don't talk loudly. But here's this adult joke. And I was the one kid in the back of the class that laughed and got it. And, that's what it felt like.
Yeah, and also there's something to me as again as a teenager who was really into comedy and really trying to understand how comedy worked and discovering myself as a performer by then myself, starting to do plays and things in high school. Um, you're since 99% of your comedy diet doesn't look like this. There's something really interesting about watching the writers and the animators put together a sequence like the one I just described and thinking to yourself, like, if you're in the writer's room, like, you have to have an incredible amount of faith in yourself, chutzpah, or both to write this out and go, this is it. This is the jokes. This is how it's going to go. I know it sounds crazy, but now we got to go pay a team of people, I think probably in Japan, to actually draw this and give it life. Like, cause it's not just like they can throw out a joke, right? Everything they come up with, there's a whole process to have to painstakingly animate it. Like, you got to believe in this thing from start to finish to do it. Cause editing it is extremely time consuming, difficult, and probably a budgetary thing they didn't have. So it's shocking to me that someone could have this concept and go like, yep, this is what we're doing.
That's a great point, and it reminds me of a video I watched today. When I do have free time, sometimes I will, like anybody, get caught surfing the internet or try not to, or really try to cut down on that and not scroll my phone. Because that's hell. But every now and again, I'll go on YouTube and I will intentionally watch some video essays. And I watched one today on why 90 films hit different, as the kids say. And it made the great point that I think is obvious to a lot of people like us and who are listening, who are consumers of media. It made the great point of just like one of the things that was just so great about 90 films specifically, but I think you could apply it to a lot of media, specifically Freakazoid, was the diversity and the investment in diversity and the investment in, for films, they call them middle class films, right? Which I think is an interesting term to use considering that's the 90s and our economy under the Clinton economy was booming. This is pre 9/11. Middle class existed. A whole swath of people had jobs and free time, leisure time. They, it wasn't a perfect world, but like made enough money to have a house, to send their kids to school. Public schools were better funded than they are now. There were still brick and mortar spaces for people to spend their money and go, specifically teenagers. And like I said, I was a latchkey kid. So all this means that you have time to invest in diversity. People, you can like, hey, what is this small weird thing? All right, I'm going to invest in it. It's going to exist, and there's going to be, even for the most minute, specific,
Niche.
specific niche counterculture thing, there will be an audience for it. And Freakazoid to me again is like, oh yeah, this was a real capper of that time period. Where like you said, like Doug, talking about how much it takes just to create the show. And from writing to character design to sending it overseas for animation and development and bringing it back and editing, all that is money and time. but they were confident enough to do that and take more risks because they felt there would be an audience. And strangely, in the inverse, and it's funny we're talking about a superhero whose powers are the internet. It seems the internet is also Freakazoid's kryptonite because now we are in a time uh, where those investments don't happen, and the we live in apparently an attention economy where everyone, doesn't have the time. No one has the wealth, apparently, right? Except for a very grossly few individuals. And don't mean to turn this into a Marxist political box, but we live in a different world um, that Freakazoid didn't save. And I'm curious, as an artist myself who's striking out to make independent art and make stuff that is niche. I think it's needed more than ever for people to find like, oh, this is my thing. I think it's really timely to be talking about something like Freakazoid, which is such a what is this? How did this get made? And we need more of that more than ever right now.
Hello! Tarik's audio didn't glitch this time. He just made a really sophisticated point that we thought was probably something you needed to relax a little bit after hearing. So enjoy this Relaxovision! And now, back to our regularly scheduled podcast. Yeah, I mean, we live in an economy where, an artistic economy at least, where it's safe bets only, right? Things that are not guaranteed bets don't get the funding to be made. Producers won't, plunk down, something for new IP. It's like, no, we're going to, however many, boomer corpses we have to drag out to make another Ghostbusters, we're going to do it. Like we're going to, because we can't come up with a new thing because we're scared that if we do a new thing, people won't love it. When I think in reality, it's of course the opposite, because everyone's tired of those things now. It's like
They are.
everyone's bored of it. And it's interesting because even though Freakazoid was obviously not a success, right? They only made 24 episodes of it, but it had a legacy that we're here to talk about because it was interesting and weird and influential.
Yeah.
So I mean, these are more closing thoughts kind of things, but I do think, the anarchic kind of spirit that animates this show, pun intended, is necessary for art. And so what you're watching when you watch this show is artists running wild with no constraints at all, which maybe it isn't always commercially successful, but I will take, if a show like Freakazoid is an artistic success 1 time out of 10, I'll happily eat those 9 failures.
Absolutely. And I'm glad you said that. That's a really healthy thing to be said in the world. And not to backtrack, but you brought up a great example and a few things. I would just point people, there's a great movie essayist on YouTube named Patrick Willems. Forget the name of his channel, but you can look him up. And he just did his last episode was on franchises and like why we won't let them die and how they are and he used Ghostbusters and he used Alien as an example of like, oh, we're just going to keep doing the same thing again. We're just going to get on the same ride. Like Alien Romulus did very well, but that movie, I saw it and I'm like, oh, it was good. It's better than the last stuff, but it's not giving me anything new. It's another Ridley character in space. One of my biggest criticisms of Alien Romulus was, they wanted to go back to the roots of the first Alien, and have all these you know, um, working class, blue collar type miners, just kind of getting by, and then they're struck by the horror of this Lovecraftian, unknowable, unkillable entity, right? But
But
If
it's
you
the
look at the
sixth,
cast,
seventh, eighth time we've seen it.
sixth, seventh, eighth time we've seen it. We've defanged that thing. The cast, um, talented actors, not knocking them, but the new cast of Alien Romulus, they none of them look like blue collar workers, right? Like none of
Yaphet
them look
Kotto and like
Yaphet Kotto,
Tom Skerritt
Tom
and
Skerritt,
what's Harry Dean Stanton. You know, these are all blue collar looking.
right?
They look like space truckers. By the way, Tarik, you don't know this. We just released an episode on Alien like
Oh,
2
you
weeks
did?
ago. As the audience is
Oh,
hearing this.
oh, I gotta
So-
listen to it.
No, I'm just saying, like you're right in that, like the problem is not that any one aspect of Alien Romulus or Alien Earth, which I kind of liked.
Yeah,
You know, it's not that any one aspect of it is bad. It's not like it has bad art direction or it has, substandard writing or any of that. But the problem is, as you said, they've defanged the xenomorph, right? We've seen this already. You can't scare people with the same thing over and over again. And it's like, again, to bring it back to our topic, like every 40 seconds, Freakazoid is showing you some shit you've never seen, never thought you'd see.
yeah.
Even when it's showing you old shit, it's recontextualizing it in a blender in such a way that it is basically brand new, baffling shit. And that's what makes it great.
It's also doing the thing. The reason I wanted to pause at Ghostbusters, right? And you said bringing back corpses, and like they brought back Hal Ramis had died. They brought him back. And they brought back, and I got to. There's a photo. If this was a video, I'd ask you to post it of like me with Dan Aykroyd, Dan Aykroyd, Bill Murray, and Ernie Hudson when they were promoting it, and I got to hang out with them. Long story, but Harold Ramis had passed away, and they bring him back for this film, and I remember seeing it, and I was like, it's not terrible, but it's not giving me. Something felt off. But I think about Freakazoid, and I talked about how Ed Asner is a regular on the show. Ricardo Montalban. You talked about bringing Valenti on the show, right? Like the way they homage stuff that came before, but make it new. They're not bringing corpses back. It's, hey, Ed Asner is here to give old man advice, right? Like in a really contemporary, ironic at the time, which was really like hip. Like they made Ed Asner hip. They made Ricardo Montalban, who to me was already hip, right? And like already proved he could crush comedy with the Naked Gun series. But they made him hip and introduced him to this laugh with me, right? Like they introduced him and turned his persona into this joke. Even if you don't get it, you think it's hilarious. It still works. That's the way, because one, it comes out of love. The show was created out of love. It was created out of like, yeah, let's just, like you said, we love those zanier episodes of Looney Tunes. We want to just do that. This is for those kids that like, yeah, did you watch Batman, Superman, the animated series? You watch Spider-Man, your X-Men, watch your Earthworm Jims and whatever else was on at the time. All right, you enjoy that? All right, but who the weirdos? Hey kid, you're a weirdo, aren't you? Stick around. You're gonna love this. And we, the world desperately needs to reward the weirdos and pay attention to the weirdos and show love to the weirdos. And this show, like, that's what it did. It did it for as long as it could. It was short and sweet. Didn't outstay its welcome, but it gave me arms akimbo. Like, one of Freakazoid's villains is literally his only thing is his name is Arms Akimbo. He's a gangster, dressed like a gangster with really long arms that are akimbo, that are, his fists are at his hips and
They never move from there. Yeah.
they don't move from there. And if he gets you in a headlock, that's it. It's a wrap. They gave me a Charlton Heston kind of parody-ass superhero who's like who's like a Charlton Heston impression if Charlton Heston was the Green Arrow, right? Like,
yeah. Let's this is a good opportunity to talk about some of these side characters that are so weird. So since you mentioned him, let's start with the Huntsman. Let's blow the horn of urgency and summon the Huntsman.
He's the huntsman. Into action is his cry. From the forest to the city, he will run there in a jiffy to sock evil in the eye. Marty Phoebe was a poor hunter, hungry without dough. Till the day he saved a chunky elf from being eaten by a crow. The elf rewarded Marty Phoebe with a magic sack of corn. He gained strength and speed and shiny teeth, and as the huntsman was reborn. Hunt, 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 he's the huntsman. He'll whip the pants on the bad guys. If there's an emergency, sound the horn of urgency and summon the huntsman. Into action is his cry. Hunt.
This is a Charlton Heston parody vocally, and sort of the drawing of the face is a little bit. He looks like Peter Pan, sort of, with like a Crocodile Dundee hat.
Right.
But the entire joke is anti-comedy. It's all build up to nothing. It's because they go through this entire long theme song, summon the huntsman into action, right? And he shows up at the police station to do something, only to be told by the police that, like, yeah, there's no crime. We got nothing for you. And just to watch him deflate.
Put me to work, Lieutenant King. I'm ready to battle crime.
Sorry, Huntsman, but nothing's cooking right now.
Is that why you haven't sounded the horn of urgency?
What can I say, Huntsman? I'm 21 years on the force, and I've never seen things this slow. It's sort of a crime downtime.
Darn it. Well, then maybe I'll go visit my brother.
Yeah, sure, why not?
He lives over on Wally Sherrod Terrace.
That's a nice neighborhood.
Okay, I'll be over at my brother's townhouse. He's in the phone book, the Hector Phoebe family.
I doubt we'll call, but thanks.
Why are things so slow? Darn, darn, oh darn!
Into action is his cry. Hunt.
Yeah. And what does he get? He gets in the theme song. He eats like some magic.
Oh, he's got a bag of magic corn that he was given by an elf.
Yes.
For saving his life.
It's such a strange, and it turns him into this. You don't even really know what the huntsman can do. Like, he's like a super athlete guy.
He's like strong, I guess.
Strong, I guess. It's not important. You never find out because he never fights crime. And it's never there for him. He just deflates. And hearing this Charlton Heston, the voice of Charlton Heston in this character, and it's just like, maybe you watched, whenever they roll out
10 Commandments
whenever they roll that out, maybe you hear that voice. But again, they are shooting well over the heads of kids of their demographic. And Huntsman was a fave. But let's get to my absolute fave, I think, is the Monty Python reference you were talking about earlier.
Lord Bravery.
Yeah.
Feels no pain, he can fly quite fast. In feats of strength, he is unsurpassed. His grip is firm, never quavery. Britannia superhero, he's Lord Bravery. Lord Bravery, Lord Bravery, Lord Bravery.
let's just get on with it.
Yes.
Yeah. Again, the long intro, very again sung by these like animated policemen. They don't quite go full Terry Gilliam on the animation, but they kind of give a nod to that style.
Yes.
And he actually is a superhero, but his thing is he always gets kind of caught up in an absurdist Monty Python sketch, basically, before he can ever really do any daring do.
Yeah. Great character design. They basically, Bruce Timm, who created Batman the animated series and Superman and the animated series and Justice League Unlimited. It's clearly his character design of Superman, but British. And with a bit of Grover from Sesame Street, Super Grover thrown in there. So it's like this, tall, statuesque human in a light blue leotard with a cape and kind of this Roman centurion helmet.
Yeah.
And an extreme British disposition that does him no favors. He's a superhero in America with this really upper crust, upper class, posh British disposition. Everything is rude. Everything is annoying. Everything needs a negotiation. And as Doug said, yeah, it always turns into a tedious Monty Python sketch.
All right, what's the problem?
I fell in this hole. I'm trapped.
Fine, hold on, I'll come and get you. What's that smell?
I think I fell in the sewer.
Ow! Can't you climb out?
If I could climb out, I wouldn't be yelling help now, would I?
Well, you could have at least yelled, help, I'm trapped in a sewer.
What would that have done?
Saved me a trip.
Do you think you could get me Superman?
Oh, Superman? What do you need with him? I'm a superhero, aren't I?
I don't know. Are you?
Yes, I told you. I said, fear not, Lord Bravery has arrived.
Oh, I thought that was a joke.
A joke?
Yeah, to keep me from focusing on my horrible pain.
Yes, well, it's not a joke.
Good, because it didn't work. Oh.
Look, I'm going to throw a rope down, too.
A rope? I thought you were going to come get me.
From the sewer?
Superman would do it.
Well, he's not here.
Could you go get him?
Look, just grab onto the rope and I'll pull you up.
Or maybe you could get those turtle fellas with the bandanas. I don't think they mind the stench down here too much. In fact, I think they'd rather like it.
You are a remarkable twit, do you know that?
Yeah, he is. I mean, he is very much like, think John Cleese in the Dead Parrot sketch, right? He is, or the Cheese Shop sketch. It's every sketch you've seen where John Cleese walks into a store and hits the rake in the face that is logic.
Right.
Like there was one I watched where Lord Bravery is told by the British government that he can't be called Lord Bravery because there's already a bakery with that name. So he has to go to the bakery and is trying to get the bakery owner to change the name of the store because her name is like Helen. Like, why? I always wanted to call it Helen's Bake Shop. He's like, well, why don't you? And she says, well, because there's already a Helen's Tire Shop or whatever with that name. And so it's just him going to a series of different people trying to get them to change the name of their business, and they can't because there's already some other business somewhere with the name they want. And they just escalate that forever. Like very Monty Python.
Yeah.
Yeah, like that kind of stuff. It's one of my favorite bits because, and again, you keep waiting. Like, when is this going to connect up to Freakazoid? Generally, it doesn't. Nope. It's just a standalone sketch.
No, there's no team up. There's no Huntsman, Freakazoid. Yeah, it's just these are the vignettes and these characters going in their own. They're in their own road. Yeah, there was like a Lord Bravery. I'm vaguely remembering of someone stuck in a sewer and crying for help, and like it's just a negotiation, and Lord Bravery like negotiating with this person, asking for help, begging for help, stuck in the sewer, and finally decides, all right, I'll help you out, and then he's stuck in the sewer, and then they're both crying for help, and it's just like, yeah, a inept superhero joke after joke after joke. I don't know, and I ate it up.
Yeah, they also had a bunch of like attempts at sidekicks for Freakazoid, which are like jokingly like he doesn't have a sidekick. There was one where it was just a rabid dog that he called Foamy, that he was trying to handle. Then of course there was we've got to talk about Fanboy. Speaking of like the writers commenting on showbiz, just this tubby nerd obsessed kid that I cannot relate to in any way, who's just a huge fan of everything until like Freakazoid, he just follows him around constantly, quoting stuff at him and, telling him how great he is for having done all these superhero things. And the only way for Freakazoid to kind of pawn him off is he gets him over to a Comic-Con type convention, and Mark Hamill is there.
Yeah.
And he's like, his superhero fandom is now like, oh, I'm going to go be a Jedi. I'm going to go torture Mark Hamill with my nerdiness.
Yes! Look, it's Mark Hamill!
Oh no, I'm not falling for that trick again.
Honest!
Mark Hamill!
Why settle for being a mere sidekick when Jedi knighthood awaits?
Yes, the Force is strong in this one. Luke, join me.
Come again?
Join me, and together we can end this destructive conflict and rule the galaxy as Fanboy and Son.
No, I'll never join you.
It is your destiny.
No!
No, wait! Come back! Come back! I won't hurt you!
Kids, if we've learned anything today, it's that your parents are right. Comic books really will rot your mind.
Yeah, and I will say, if there's one thing, there's probably a few more, but if there's one demerit I would take off from the show, it's not really a show for body positivity, because there's another side character like Fat Man
and Blubber Boy.
Like, it's a take on parody on Batman. And, the joke, explains itself. It's Batman, but really obesely, overweight. And, how that's an impediment to fighting crime. And they take those jokes out. I do think it's very interesting, not to have another aside, but you know me, thinking about the Fanboy character and how in this time in American culture, like internet, like, pre-internet days or internet's just burgeoning, and chat rooms were particularly taking off before social media, where, with the existence of convention and chat rooms, fanboys were now finally able to, share their love and, of course, their gripes with their favorite, childhood kind of fandom. Star Wars, we all know how William Shatner and the documentaries, how he felt about Trekkies. But this stuff was it was now in the public zeitgeist and consciousness. People knew about it. And I feel like Fanboy is such an interesting proto example of where we would become as Americans and globally, like stan culture, hyper obsession with media and celebrity. I feel like you can pin a lot of where we are today with the beginnings of what was toxic about fan culture even then. Kind of this perpetual adolescence that Mark Hamill rails against in the form of this character Fanboy.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little mean-spirited, to be sort of going after the fans. I mean, but also, like, The Simpsons has comic book guy, right? It's the same basic joke.
Same basic joke.
And I think in its gentler uses, Fanboy is funny because the joke is just he won't shut up. You know, I mean, that's at one point Freakazoid is arrested for something, and he's like going to fight it, but like the sentence or something is like, oh well, you can listen to Fanboy here talk endlessly about nonsense, or you can be dragged away in chains. And he makes his choice. And as they drag Freakazoid away, he's just like, there it is. It's actually pretty funny.
It's very funny.
You know,
it's also, I would also, another example, Chris Farley's fan character from SNL.
Sure.
It's like, remember that thing? And he would meet a celebrity and just only like, hey, remember that thing? It's It is a little mean-spirited, but yeah, I'm sure somebody can write a more intelligent essay on that whole thing.
All right, so let's talk about Cosgrove. This is Ed Asner, who you've mentioned before. This is, to the extent Freakazoid does have a sidekick, it's Cosgrove. He's just a police officer. He just shows up wherever. It's just somehow he's there. And he gives Freakazoid sage advice, but he also always invites him to some distraction. You know, hey Freakazoid, you want to go see the Acton, Ohio Bee Festival? Do I? And then they go to the Bee Festival. You know, hard cut to.
Hey Freakazoid.
Oh, hiya, Cosgrove.
You want to go to the Honey Harvest Festival in Acton?
Really? Are you serious? Yes!
Wow. I can't remember when I've had so much fun.
Yeah, but I think I overdid it on the honey. By the way, Steph and the kids have been captured by that spooky boogeyman guy.
Think I should go help him?
I would, but that's me.
Okay, see ya.
While there's a crisis happening, this always happens. And you know, then he gives him some advice and he goes, okay, thanks. And then he goes back to fighting crime or whatever. Like it's such a weird bit, but like Ed Asner, God, what a great actor. Most people would know him. He's the grumpy old man from Up. That's probably his most recent performance people would know. But just blessed with this incredibly gruff voice that is so perfect for this.
And exterior. Like he looks like, you know, they draw Cosgrove to look like Ed Asner. And yeah, he's what you would picture like the mid-century, 20th century man or boss. Like he was the famous boss on the Mary Tyler Moore Show. Rolled up sleeves, just dark eyebrows and like, you know, like no neck, but broad and barrel chested and just a man, right? Sergeant Mike Cosgrove, and a voice of authority and warmth. And if he got upset, he would say, cut it out. And villains, no matter how bad or evil, would cut it out. And it's such a great device. And yeah, he was a constant for our hero Freakazoid.
Yep. And then we, of course, your man Roddy McDowell plays Roddy McStew, who is Freakazoid's mentor. He's the person who, in the story, worked for Pinnacle. He figured out the flaw in the Pinnacle chip that created Freakazoid. That's his plot purpose, but mostly he's just there to be sort of a version of like Scotty from Star Trek, just kind of panicking, overly worried Scotsman.
All is peace, all is calm. Within the silence of yourself, lad, reach out with your mind and raise up the brick. Ow! A wee bit more control, once again.
No way, Roddy. I'm sick of this telekinesis stuff. Why do I have to learn to move things with my mind?
Strength and speed will only take you so far, lad.
It got me a second season.
You can't count on that! Networks are fickle! They can drop you like a man with big oak fingers!
So what? Will they like me if I have the power to make things hit me in the head? Is this a good skill?
Learn to do it right! Now try again, or you'll get nothing for supper but a piece of leather and a blatherskite.
What's a blatherskite?
It's a piece of leather! Now concentrate!
But I'm supposed to guard that diamond hat of the Tsar's tonight.
You've got plenty of time. Just relax. All is peace, all is calm. Within the silence of yourself, reach out with your mind and raise that brick.
Yeah. He's like there for they draw him to kind of look like Robin Williams. I don't know what that was about, but
In a kilt. Yeah.
in a kilt. But yeah, his major episodes are that strange two-parter to build out the mythology and canon of Freakazoid. And Roddy McDowall, I think also. So Roddy McDowall passed away in 1998, and I think he was sick when he was doing the show. So I think he voices the Loeb for like an episode.
I was going to say Loeb is David Warner. Most of the time.
And David Warner who's also a great R.I.P. Was the Sark from Tron and just the villains in so many movies and Jack the Ripper from time after time. But yeah, like they go in deep in their bag in terms of like what actors can we find who are solid actors, and we want to just kind of give them their flowers right now.
Yeah, in fact, so even though there were only 24 episodes of Freakazoid, he was brought back for a cameo on Teen Titans. There's a Teen Titans episode and it's Paul Rugg voicing him. So they do a whole Freakazoid thing, and they brought in David Warner to be the Loeb. And if Wikipedia is to be believed, that was his final performance as an actor, was getting to be the Loeb one more time on Teen Titans. What? Yeah.
Well, okay, I'm gonna have to check this out. That is information I did not know, and now I'm going to check it out.
I'll have to go throw in a clip of that here so people can hear it.
Your trip down memory lane is over, brain.
I'm afraid it's only the beginning, for I have just unleashed the greatest cartoon mastermind the 1990s had to offer. The Loeb.
What's the meaning of this unexpected crossover?
Using our combined intellects, we shall devise the most brilliant evil plan the world has ever seen.
How are we gonna stop these guys? They've got too much brain power, and we're a bunch of dum-dums! The only way to defeat a 90s villain is by teaming up with a 90s hero. Spread out and see what you can find. Fine, but I'm warning you, this guy is a wild card. Freakazoid! Freakazoid!
Not done.
Freakazoid!
Almost. There, sorry. Couldn't help myself.
Well, Freakazoid, we summoned you here because we need your help taking down the Loeb.
Oh.
Then you'll help us?
Nah.
Why the not?
Look, guys, no offense, but Steven Spielberg is the executive producer of my show, and he's very picky about doing crossovers. I doubt very highly.
He said it was fine.
Let's do it!
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been. I had meant to rewatch that for this episode. I didn't get a chance to see it again, but I have seen it. It's just a little warm hit in the feels by a team that obviously knows their superhero shit.
Yeah,
so, fun to have him there. But the Loeb, God, this is the Freakazoid's most frequent antagonist. He's just a scientist guy whose head is a giant brain.
Mm-hmm.
No backstory. He's so like, how do you even describe what his deal is? Like he's
sad.
He's like, he sounds fiendish, right? And then every once in a while he gets disappointed and just weeps. Like he's kind of flimsy, and that's pretty funny.
Yeah, he's there's like a great bit where, he's doing the supervillain thing and trying to take over the world and cause havoc, and and Freakazoid, or maybe it's Cosgrove who says, "Cut it out." And he just starts to cry, and like he stops and he gets his feelings hurt. And it's just like, oh, right. Yeah. Hurt people. And I would say that's a great definition of who the Loeb is. He's just like a sad, mad scientist, just wants to be loved. And David Warner, who didn't do nearly enough comedy, in my opinion, just knocks it out of the park.
That's right, Freakazoid. With this atomic demolecularizer, I can turn anyone into a clown zombie, trained to do my bidding. Why? The perfect plan. Everyone loves a clown. There's a knock on the door. It's a clown. You let it in. The next thing you know, they've taken over for me.
Well, if you don't mind me saying so, that is the stupidest plan I've ever heard of.
No, it's not. It's a good plan.
Baloney! People don't like clowns. What were you thinking? That's just dumb.
Nuh-uh.
Uh-huh. Dumb. And you're doing it out here in the middle of nowhere. There aren't even that many people around. What were you thinking? Explain it to me.
I'm not sure.
Come on, get out of there. I expected a lot more from you than this, clown zombies. Please.
You're right. I'm sorry. I don't know what's wrong with me. I think I'm overtired. It's the best I could do.
Turn off the cloud. Now go on. Get out of here. Go.
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
Go on.
Sorry.
Yeah, dude. What a really talented character actor. And again, I grew up knowing him from Tron. He plays 3 different characters in Tron, actually. And just this wonderful, like, just the quality of his voice is so unique. And like the instant you hear it, the only other actor who kind of comes close is Malcolm McDowell. They have fairly similar voices.
Yeah, I mean, which is funny that they're pitted against each other in the movie time after time, right?
Yeah, they strike me as fairly similar in terms of their affect and stuff. But
yeah,
there's a few other Freakazoid villains to mention. There's Cave Guy, who's just this giant blue caveman with a Connecticut lockjaw accent. And then the one I liked, I remember seeing this episode a bunch, is Candlejack.
Yeah, Candlejack is creepy, and I guess kind of a take on Mike Myers and Jason Voorhees.
He's slasher villain adjacent.
Yeah.
He's a Halloween character for sure. Like he attacks kids at a summer camp, but he's also got like this like Candyman thing where it's like if you say his name, that's when he'll come and get you. And so the sketch though is just a bunch of kids at the summer camp just stupidly saying his name.
Yeah,
over and over, until he's like, I'm gonna need more rope for all these kids I'm kidnapping. I better go buy some. Like it's very stupid. And and again, they will often like, how do we defeat the villains? Well, Freakazoid doesn't defeat villains by punching them generally.
No,
it's like usually Bugs Bunny stuff. So like in that one, the narrator comes out and describes how Freakazoid built a cage and he was trapped in it. The end.
That's right, Freakazoid had a plan involving steel and mortar and bricks and pie. For what Candlejack did not know, what he could not know, was that Freakazoid had secretly constructed a terrifically treacherous trap in the wild and windy woods. Smack me with a handle, and when that big boogeyman went to charter the bus, he was lured by the aroma of perfectly plump pumpkin pie. I think there's a thumbtack under my fanny. Upon finding the pie, he picked it up and was trapped in the cage. Thus, the spell was broken, the children were rescued, and a wonderful celebration ensued. And now you know the rest of the episode. Good day. Oh my!
Right. So, but it's basically defeat by narrator.
Defeat by narrator, because Freakazoid and Cosgrove both say Candlejack and get caught. So, it's win by Deus Machina.
Well, and that episode was presented in Screamo-Vision, where the announcer would just go, scream, and then everyone would scream. The other thing about it was, so following on that, there was an episode, which I mentioned at the beginning, Relaxo-Vision. Did you think you'd never hear this Relaxovision bit again? Surprise! It's here again! Okay, I'm done now. Right, where whenever the cartoon got too exciting, they would cut to this just footage of like peaceful flowers and shit, and they would play the theme from oh god, it's Percy Faith and his orchestra, Summer Place. Yeah, for like 3.5 seconds, but they would use that to defeat the villains, because anytime something got hairy, they would just they'd play that, and then when they cut back, it's all over. Right? They don't have to. They never have to solve any problems on this show.
And again, another kind of studio note disguised as a joke, because at this point, we're coming to we're about the last Saturday morning cartoon aired in 2011, but it's starting to really die its death in the late 90s because of standards in television and the pressure of violence on TV and selling stuff to kids on TV, which I think is very funny, because compared to now, all right, you took away Saturday morning cartoons and replaced it with social media. And if you ask me, every day and twice on Sunday, I would definitely take Saturday morning cartoons as a healthier influence on our country's youth than social media. And now everything is being sold, and violence is everywhere, and kids don't have a space or a block that's just for them. Anyway, I digress.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you, first of all, as someone who has young kids that are I come downstairs in the morning and they're watching YouTube, and I'm like, oh God, what is it going to be? It's YouTube is fucking roulette. It could be anything.
It really is.
So I do think they have a good rogues gallery, as any superhero should have here, but they are not, again, meant to be meaningful rogues to foil Freakazoid. If anything, they foil him or get in his way by being annoying. You're right. They're just setups for punchlines, and that's okay, because that's what we're doing. Think about I am Boron. They bring him in.
Right.
Who's just an alien who mostly repeats that one phrase.
Yeah.
He lands in the ship from The Day the Earth Stood Still, the original one, right? Mm-hmm. And the joke is oh good, an alien's here. They're going to share with us the wisdom of the cosmos. And keeps just going, I am Boron. And finally they're thank you. It's Stan Freberg actually doing that voice, who an old-timey voice actor that got to do that. I was very pleased, because I grew up listening to Stan Freberg's History of the United States. Something I listened to a lot as a kid. And so his voice, great cartoon voice actor for many years. But anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the joke ends up being when he can't remember this great message he came light years to deliver to humanity. And when he finally does, it's just oh yeah, there's an asteroid that's about to blow up the Earth. And then it does. It does. They don't avert it. They're fine with the world being obliterated, because in this cartoon, continuity and consequences are irrelevant.
Yeah. It's and Boron's got this baby Huey kind of. He's just an idiot. A lovable idiot. And yeah, it's so absurdist and so pointless. And so funny.
And then the last thing I kind of want to talk about is kind of the bite-sized stuff they do. All of these little PSAs, cutaway jokes, because even a Huntsman segment is going to take up 3 minutes. Right. But they also save a lot of their runtime for these very short bits, usually involving Freakazoid, but not always, where he's there to teach you how to speak French.
Let's learn how to speak French, because it's time for Frenching with Freakazoid.
Bonjour classe, comment allez-vous? Bon, et maintenant, la leçon du jour. Qui a coupé le fromage? Je répète, qui a coupé le fromage? Who cut the cheese? Who cut the cheese? Qui a coupé le fromage. Bon, merci, au revoir.
This has been Frenching with Freakazoid.
Mm-hmm.
You know, or teach you about something. And like, great parody for things kids were subjected to all the time were these PSAs. And here, these things are so nonsensical and so pointless. Even by like the standards where they would do these in like Animaniacs would do this. This is taking it one step even further into nonsense world.
Because even in Animaniacs, you're learning something, right? Like the songs were incredible, and you know, especially it's quite famous. The
Yakko's World.
Yakko, naming every country and like to that song. But I feel like Freakazoid took a note from Seinfeld of like no lessons, no morals, no lessons. So like you think you're gonna get like a G.I. Joe kind of, the more you know stinger, and it's just more absurdist humor. Because this was a time when, PSAs were more frequent. This is your brain. This is your brain on drugs, right? Like, and frying an egg in the pan. The more you know, only you can prevent forest fires, right? Like these things take a bite out of crime. I don't know if that one reached.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, right.
McGruff the crime dog. Absolutely.
Yeah, Gruff. So like these things were really common for kids. So even if again the jokes are going over your head, you are getting this. You are getting the message that like, yeah, some of these things are kind of stupid. Like stop talking to me like I'm stupid. I just remember thinking that as a kid, that like sometimes I felt like my intelligence was being insulted. Now as an adult, I'm just like, look, anything that is for protecting kids, put it out there. Like, we need it.
But some of these aren't even like PSAs. There was one where it was like, I saw where Freakazoid is there to do, we would now do a test of the emergency broadcast system. And it's Freakazoid going ee for as long as he can until his breath runs out.
Yeah.
And then, but to cap it, they go, well, this was only a test of the emergency broadcast system. If there was a real emergency, it would sound like this. Ah! Hair on fire, screaming, right?
Yeah.
They would find ways, and maybe some of this was literally just going like, well, we have to, there's still a run time to be concerned of. We've got exactly 23 minutes to fill, and we know where the commercial breaks go. So to make the timing work out, we got to, jimmy in like 12 and a half more seconds of footage. What's it going to be? But that gave them license to do what are essentially not one-liners, but like one jokers, like one unit of comedy, please.
Yeah. And it carried over. I mean, this was a direct carryover from Animaniacs. I'm remembering good idea, bad idea, good idea. Not feeding animals at a zoo, bad idea. And then the skeleton or
not feeding animals anything at the zoo.
Yeah, right. Like it. So like I feel like the writers and the animators were practiced. It was same team. They were practiced at this point of like, hey, let's just create a little bumper, and we'll just get a little weirder over here. They are already weird with Animaniacs. Let's get weirder over here.
Yeah, and it's interesting given how all the weirdness we've been talking about, the show ends on such a sincere note. If you've ever seen the last episode, they knew at a certain point they weren't getting renewed. And I've heard the creators talk about like, well, we were going to run out the clock and we were going to run out the money. We were going to do everything we could to spend every penny they gave us to make these last episodes as special as we could and as weird as we could. And that included sometimes getting the rights to songs. And so after this big battle between Freakazoid and all of his rogues gallery at once, he steps out onto the stage at the Hollywood Bowl, where they've had bits with him at the Hollywood Bowl before. And he brings out the entire cast of the show and all the villains and everybody, and they all stand there and they sing "We'll Meet Again."
Before we go, we'd like to leave you with this thought.
We'll meet again. Don't know where, don't know when.
say hello to the folks that I know. Tell them I won't be long. They'll be happy to know that as you saw me go, I was singing this song. Everybody! We'll meet again. Don't know where, don't know when, but I know we'll meet again some sunny
day. Yeah, it's a very touching, and that song comes from, I believe, it's how every episode of Roy Rogers used to end, which is an appropriate thing to talk about after this holiday season, after rewatching Die Hard, it's my one holiday tradition. I was always partial to Roy Rogers. I like the sequin shirts. Yippee-ki-yay, but Roy Rogers is a cowboy show for kids specifically, right? In that Saturday morning era, they would end their show, Roy Rogers and his wife, I can't remember her name, singing that song. Don't know how, don't know when, right? It's a very touching song.
But also, not only does it mark the end of Roy Rogers' shows.
Can you believe it? We're back with this again? I know, but look, Doug and Tarik just made a terrible error. Roy Rogers and Dale Evans didn't end their show with We'll Meet Again. They ended with Happy Trails. Now just relax over this minor error with Relaxovision.
It is famously the end of Dr. Strangelove, or How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love the Bomb, a show about the end, or a movie about the very end of the world.
You're absolutely right.
And so that's the association I have with the song. But I think here it functions in both ways, right? It both, is a sincere goodbye and also kind of a like, it's the end, the real end kind of way. And
you talked about how Freakazoid made an appearance on Teen Titans. So like WB, their animations through like late 90s to early 2000s, they're kicking tail. Another strength, I would say, spiritual successor. So you had like Batman the animated series, Bruce Timm, and then like that ends, and they're doing the Justice League cartoon. But then another show called Batman Brave and the Bold comes out that takes both, that was based on the DC comic Brave and the Bold, where it wasn't always Batman, but it'd be a team up of two different superheroes from the DC canon. And typically superheroes that didn't get a lot of shine, who weren't your Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, your more obscure characters. But anyway, on Batman Brave and the Bold, the animated series, which I love that show if you haven't seen it and you love you love animated stuff, I highly recommend. It's so great. It's so comic booky. It's so silly. And sometimes it goes absurd into a Freakazoid way. But they knew, similarly, bringing it up because they knew after their 2 or 3 seasons that they were coming to an end. And so they end on a touching note. They don't sing the song, but they bring out the whole cadre of everyone who's appeared before and give a very touching goodbye to the audience that was the weird kids that like, hey, we know the show was a little weird. We know it was a little off kilter, but that was the intention. And if you rocked with us, thanks for rocking with us. See you out there. And yeah, I think there's something special about Freakazoid ending that way. Animators knowing they gave it a shot and they had the grace to know and this was our time. And thank you for watching. Thank you for, sitting and paying attention.
Yeah. And as we're kind of rounding in here into closing thoughts on it, we've talked a lot about kind of how the world we live in now, 30 years on, right, from Freakazoid is so different. And yet I kind of feel like the world sort of needs this now more than ever. For one thing, God, the glut of superhero content is calling out for someone to parody it. And, Deadpool's trying, but he's also in it. He's
also in it. Yeah.
He's a part of the system. And
Yeah.
Freakazoid is sort of not. Like the time is almost right for, let's get Freakazoid punching the shit out of the MCU, not literally, but, satirically.
Absolutely.
And the kind of the mean, cynical world that we're in, things that are very, very silly, I think are needed. I think people, were really happy with the new Naked Gun movie because, it was just silly. It had nothing else, and
yeah,
there's been other things like that lately where people were kind of just like, it was good to have fun. Remember fun? Fun was good.
Yeah.
Freakazoid is unrelenting fun. It's fun at a joke a second, not even a joke a minute. I mean, it is relentless in terms of how they are just throwing stuff at you. And I feel like if anything, like if you were to somehow get the team together you needed to, and the money to make it, this is almost the environment in which Freakazoid could thrive.
I would hope. I know they brought back Animaniacs for a little bit, and I loved it. And my plea is to anyone who's listening, you have to go support the art. You got to go support the weird kid. You got to support the artist that's alive, not the one that's dead. So Freakazoid made a comeback, and I agree with you. We need that more than ever. We need that silliness. Yeah, I'm also thinking about different but similar vein, the movie Mystery Men. I think it was before its time, right? No one, we weren't steeped enough publicly in the superhero subgenre to know what the B team looked like because we hadn't had the Avengers yet. Now it's like, oh, the Avengers can't save the day. We all know who those are. Now we would understand what the B team saving the day would be, or the C team, or the D team. And Freakazoid is that. It's just like, now I feel like people would get it and get like, oh, not everything is a cool, a hip reference to what is today. I think everybody's kind of exhausted by it. And like you said, wants a break and wants not just a break, but wants something to break the machine. Deadpool, you're in it. You are Ryan Reynolds, you're too hip for school. Something's got to break that machine. If anything, that's how you repair the machine again and we find a new normal.
I think that's a great place to leave it. So, Tarik, if people want to find your stuff, where do they go? First of all, you should tell the folks about Doc, which is already out there for them to see. And then you should talk about this awesome project you're working on next.
Thank you. You can find me on my socials at Tarik R. Davis. You can find me on YouTube. You can find me on TikTok, Instagram. Those are the three primary spaces. I am still, for the moment, on Twitter and BlueSky. I may cut those loose, but I just Doc was a short film I made 2 years ago that I'm very proud of, and it's on YouTube streaming now. You can watch it, 30 minutes.
And there's a link to it in the show notes.
There's a link to it. Thank you so much. Time travel takes place about a time traveler. It takes place in an old talk show interview from the late 60s, which is an era that Freakazoid loves to pull from anyway. So we're aligned. But still in my Latchkey Kid bag, I made my own classic noir film. And I say classic because the film is set, it's black and white, and it's set in the mid-century, 20th century, late 1930s. So, detective noir, whodunit. It's the most ambitious thing I've shot this far. It's for a feature, proof of concept and short film for a feature that we are going to make by hook or by crook. And we are trying to be those weirdos in the corner. And we hope that we find some weirdos who will support us. We're getting We have a Kickstarter going right now. I don't think it will be going by the time you hear this episode, but we will definitely still need any support we can get. I never thought I'd be this guy, but if you see me out there, like, comment, share. Those things really do help. Yeah. So yeah, it's called We're Not in Harlem Anymore. The trailer's out right now, and it's doing some good numbers on the YouTube and TikTok. So check it out.
That's awesome. I will put the link to the trailer for that as well, so people can see it. It's really cool.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. No one I know knows more about noir than you do. So very excited to see what you come up with when you're going to make one of your own. So
yeah, I'm excited to share with everybody. Thank you, Doug. That's really kind.
Yeah. So on our end, here's some quick admin for you. Of course, if, as Tarik said, if you like something, do share it, subscribe, obviously, and drop a review for podcasts. That makes a big difference in terms of the algorithm, helping the podcast find new audience. If you haven't done it, go ahead and do it. It won't take you very long, and it sure would be very much appreciated. Also appreciated, word of mouth. Go share it with a friend. Tell somebody you heard it and liked it. If you want to get in touch with us, our social media portals are all in the show notes. And also, I should let you know, I do 2 other podcasts you might be interested in. One is Playing by Ear that I do every other week. That is a music show that I do with my wife and brother-in-law, where each episode we take an album and then break it down track by track to talk about what we like and don't like. It's a lot of fun. And then if you go to patreon.com/stillloadingpod and drop a few bucks to get on my friend Josh Koval's Patreon feed, I do a monthly show there with him called Still Muppeting. So every month we have a different Muppet podcast for you. So we've done ones already on the original Muppet movie. We did one on Muppet Christmas Carol. We did one on, we picked an episode of The Muppet Show to talk about that. And as you're hearing this month, I believe the next one is a Great Muppet Caper. And in March, coming up next should be The Dark Crystal. So we're working our way through the Jim Henson filmography of stuff. So go check that out as well. Man, Tarik, thanks again for getting together with me to talk about Freakazoid, because we're 2 nerds who love this thing that found each other. So
yes, we are. Thank you for having me. So much fun talking with you about nerdy stuff, man. I love doing it.
Until next time, then, that is one more entry in the Nostalgium Arcanum.
Wake up your folks and tell them you're hungry. Go!
Okay, that does it. Anyone interested in Freakazoid, stay. The rest of you, get lost. So, any questions about the show?
You're very popular in a number of state institutions.
Thanks. That's, different of you to say.